A step toward ending summers full of roaring dirt bikes and squealing tires from burnouts. But will a new law just signed be enforced? Fox 45 News presses city leaders and the presumptive new state's attorney. Developing tonight, shots fired again in Baltimore County on the heels of 2 teens shot this weekend. The rising crime trend the police union says county leaders don't want you to know about. 4 investigations by the state find that city schools violated federal education rights of students. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore continues to make parents' concerns heard.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Rielle Creighton. Kai Jackson has the night off. Our top story tonight, the gun violence in Baltimore County continues after a violent weekend.
That's right. At least 3 people were wounded in shootings this weekend, 2 of them teenagers. Now another shooting. This one was deadly.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live now with a look at the growing violence in Baltimore County. Rebecca.
Yeah, that's right. We know that there's been another shooting, but details from police, they have been hard to come by. It's a pattern we're starting to see with the Baltimore County Police Department, and it's something their police union is especially frustrated with. It was a weekend marked by bloodshed in Baltimore County. On Saturday, 2 teens in critical condition after a shooting in Catonsville. On Sunday, a man gunned down in Owings Mills. And now another shooting striking the county on Monday. Residents at this apartment complex near Perry Hall High School telling us off camera they overheard several shots being sprayed, then later saw a body laying next to this dumpster. Fox 45 reaching out to police for basic information, asking, was this a homicide and is there still a threat to the public? But police only willing to say officers responded to a shots fired call, claiming they can't release any more information due to it being an active investigation.
And that's disturbing.
According to FOP President David Folderauer, the lack of information is on par with the department's recent lack of transparency.
And the police department is not being as forthcoming with information that very much could quell the fear that's going on when you hear about severe incidents.
To make matters worse, Folderauer says crime stats on the county's website not adding up. The FOP ran the numbers themselves, and there's significantly more crime than what's currently being reported. It's a discrepancy Folderauer brought to the department's attention back in August, and yet
still not cleared up. They're still using the exact same system. So somewhere there is an issue.
An issue, he says, shields the public from the true story of climbing crime in the county.
Where there is an issue, whether it's ineptitude or intentional, but I don't know which one of the two it is.
Now, after a back and forth, the department finally emailing us back tonight to confirm that there is no longer a threat to the public from tonight's shooting. Again, that took hours to get that information. They also say that the man was found dead, but they still aren't confirming whether this person was shot or confirming if it was a homicide. Meanwhile, my questions concerning the crime stat discrepancy, those are still going unanswered. Reporting live in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Coming up tonight at 10:30, another disturbing crime trend in Baltimore County. We're seeing more and more juveniles fall victim to violence.
I'm afraid to send my 14-year-old back to school this week coming up.
Coming up at 10:30, Alexa Ashwell has a closer look at this weekend's shooting that left 2 teenagers in critical condition and demands answers from the Baltimore County Police Department.
Turning now to a city in crisis and a potential solution to a problem Baltimore City has been dealing with for years. We have seen dangerous street racing and stunt driving shut streets down time and time again. Well, now there is a new law to crack down on those drivers. The question is, can it be enforced? Keith Daniels joins us live with a closer look at the new law the mayor signed today and just how effective it could be. Keith?
Well, Mary, that's right. It's a new law targeting stunt racing and stunt driving. It also applies to dirt bikes. And tonight, questions about enforcement. Revving engines, squealing tires, roaring dirt bikes. The long-standing issue of obstruction of streets, illegal racing, and stunt driving. Tonight, a new law, stiffer penalties for offenders. With the stroke of a pen, Mayor Brandon Scott signing the legislation into law.
I'm glad we finally have some tough laws to deal with it.
City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer, who represents Northwest Baltimore, introduced the bill this summer. Now it's law. But what about enforcement?
Are you looking for arrest? You want to see arrest?
No, I mean, the idea here is that it serves as more of a deterrent. We don't want to have to take enforcement action, but now, if it does continue, there will be enforcement action taken.
The new law carries a fine up to $1,000 for violators and up to a year in jail if convicted of the misdemeanor charge. But with an understaffed police department and City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby already choosing not to prosecute certain lower-level crimes, will this law be enforced? Not everyone is so sure.
If the police aren't going to enforce it now, what makes them think they're going to enforce this when there's just another law with a $1,000 fine?
While there's doubt Mosby will prosecute, Ivan Bates has said he intends to prosecute laws that are on the books, including those related to squeegee kids, who Bates has said must go.
We have to find a way to remove them.
We asked, in terms of enforcement, is this a law that Ivan Bates would uphold and prosecute? We sent the email at about 4:20 today. As of 9 o'clock tonight, we had not heard back. But back at City Hall,
when we sign a bill like this, we need to make sure that people are held accountable.
More from what council members and community leaders expect on enforcement.
I think that if folks are consistently breaking the law, then yes, they need to be arrested.
We got to put a stop to this, you know what I'm saying? This is dangerous, it can hurt somebody, it can cause damage. I mean, so many things, but more than anything is lawlessness.
Well, Baltimore City has a few laws that aren't enforced, and that includes laws that could keep squeegee kids off the streets. One of them states that a person can't stand in a roadway to solicit a ride, employment, or business from a driver. The other targets aggressive soliciting. Well, another is the city curfew, the law that states children 13 years old and younger in Baltimore City must be inside from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m., while children 14 to 16 have an 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. Baltimore City Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says that curfew is impossible to enforce.
Baltimore police reported 0 shootings nor murders overnight, but that doesn't mean the crime crisis is slowing fast enough. The tone from leaders at the top, however, is changing from previous comments. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has a look at how the deputy mayor for public safety is looking at crime differently.
Right now, there are fewer homicides in Baltimore than compared to the same time last year. That has some leaders in City Hall looking at the crime plan, saying that it's working. But we spoke with a former BPD commissioner who says now is not the time to claim a victory. Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Anthony Barksdale ready to say the violent crime trend is showing progress.
So there's a reduction. I base how I view things on the data, and that data says that we're going in the right direction.
When we spoke with Barksdale, there was 1 fewer homicide than at the same time in 2021. Is 1 homicide fewer, though, really something to praise?
1 homicide fewer means we're going the right way. Imagine if I was saying we're plus 22 or 20, whatever it was when I started. We're trending in the right direction. Of course, there's room for progress, so I'm not arguing with you on that point. But -1 is a start.
That was last week. Now there are 4 fewer homicides. And September ending with 13 homicides, which is the lowest recorded in a single month since February 2015.
Homicide down by 1 really isn't a dramatic improvement.
Political analyst John Teedy says people watch the homicide numbers, and right now there has not been a significant improvement.
I think that a lot of people are frustrated still that there hasn't been a dramatic drop.
Sean Kennedy from the Maryland Public Policy Institute says people cannot ignore those who have survived gun violence. And so far, that's 565 people.
But they're not counting the people who are forever paraplegics, the people who are forever traumatized, the people who will never work again, people will never hold their children again.
I hardly think this is the time to do a victory lap.
Ed Norris, former BPD commissioner, says the crime rates in Baltimore now are still significantly higher than in years past, even if some lives are spared.
Even a slight improvement, we start to celebrate here, and it's still much more violent than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Before assuming this deputy mayor role, Barksdale not holding back.
I firmly believe that the mayor and the police commissioner are letting the citizens of Baltimore down.
Already walking those words back.
I acted irrationally, and I'm man enough to apologize to the commissioner.
But his tweets from this now deleted account show he had issues with the consent decree. Fast forward a few years.
Policing alone won't solve this problem. I used to believe in arrest, arrest, arrest.
Barksdale seems to be all in on Mayor Scott's way of handling the crime crisis.
All of these tools are a critical part of Mayor Scott's comprehensive violence prevention plan. It's not that way anymore, not under Mayor Scott.
I think he believes it because I believe in it, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Norris says Barksdale's back and forth could be because he's in a different role with a different boss.
You're going to have to fall in line with the mayor's wishes. The mayor is the boss.
But it doesn't mean that more attention cannot be paid to the problem right now.
There's a whole bunch of things that need to be done. But we're in a crisis today, and the police department can't be let off the hook, nor can the city.
Norris also says that leaders inside City Hall need to remember that people living in the city want to feel safe where they live, when they go to work, when they go to the grocery store, anywhere in their communities. And he says right now, not everyone can say that. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
So that brings us to our question of the day. Are more kids committing crimes because they don't fear the consequences? So far, 99% of those who have voted say yes, and we want to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com to weigh in.
Tracking Hurricane Ian's remnants and fallout tonight in Florida, the death toll has surpassed 100. Nearly 3,000 people have been rescued. The president visits on Wednesday, and the hardest hit was Lee County. It was last to issue mandatory evacuations, but leaders defend their decisions.
But we can continuously say, look, mandatory evacuation. Mother Nature taught us a lesson. It's unpredictable, but I'm confident in the decisions that were made.
Well, we are also monitoring impacts closer to home. Ocean City was battered with big waves and flooding, and today we saw big waves breach the rocks and reach the inlet lot. People posted flooding videos to Twitter throughout the weekend and today. On the bottom, a live look here in Baltimore. You can see drenched flag right outside our studios on this soggy night. Well, that rain isn't going anywhere just yet. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers with what to expect during that morning commute. Jonathan?
Yeah, Mary, the morning rush going to be a mess. You can see here as we forward the future scan to 6 a.m. for the early risers getting out the house. You're going to need the umbrella. Wet roads through about 7, waterlogged through about 8:45. And also as you wrap up the morning commute at 10:45, even some heavier amounts of rain during that same time frame. Now, as you head down the ocean, coastal flood advisories, in fact, now for minor flooding. Hopefully we keep the tides out of the streets now during the overnight and high tide times tomorrow afternoon as those finally expire. I'm going to let you know when this finally all gets out of here, coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Next on Fox 45 News at 10, a mother's intuition proven right by a state investigation. Fox 45 News Project Baltimore looks into a report citing multiple violations by city schools when it comes to providing an education. City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's latest twist in the federal case against her, what they just filed, and another deadline her team faces by Friday to avoid punishment. Plus, 2 city council members airing out their grievances on Twitter. The back and forth over your public safety.
Tonight, 4 Baltimore City families say their children were denied the education they're entitled to.
And now, as Project Baltimore's Chris Pabst explains, a state investigation has confirmed it.
To me, it feels like if I wanted to walk up and slap somebody, they did it for me.
Ebony Frisbee feels vindicated.
It was really relieving to get that. I'm like, I've been telling you, y'all were wrong.
Frisbee is referring to this, the results of Maryland State Department of Education investigations, which found Baltimore City schools violated the federal education rights of 4 students, including her son.
He is losing out on the education that he is rightfully deserved. Like, this is more than just education. It was financial, it's mental, emotional. Like, I don't care what your title is. As a human being, what you're doing is wrong. So I hope they get fired. Have a seat.
Project Baltimore first spoke with Frisbee in August. Her son, Shy, attended Marianne Winterling Elementary in West Baltimore. Shy has an IEP, or Individualized Education Program. It's designed to provide him with extra services, which are federally funded and mandated. But Frisbee told Project Baltimore Shy was not getting those services, so she kept him home for his safety. He missed 96 straight days of school, yet received a report card with falsified grades and was promoted to 2nd grade.
But your son, Shy, missed basically
his whole school year. Yeah.
At the time, city schools pointed the finger elsewhere.
Right. I remember that. Still irritating.
In a statement, the district said Frisbee's complaints about her own son's education contained inaccuracies.
It's honestly, it's a horrible thing to say and even do.
The Maryland State Department of Education seemed to agree with Frisbee's concerns. MSDE issued this report after Frisbee filed a disability complaint on behalf of her son. The state found 4 violations of Shy's federal education rights. According to the report, the school was not properly evaluating his progress as Shy failed to meet his IEP goals. City schools must now provide corrective actions and issue a report to MSDE by December 1st, outlining what it's doing to not just better educate Shy, but all students with disabilities at Marianne Winterling.
It's not just me, it's many other parents out there that's going to Baltimore City schools that's experiencing the same thing.
And Frisbee is correct. Since May, Project Baltimore has interviewed 5 families who say their children with disabilities were also cheated out of an education. 4 of those children had IEPs. All 4 filed disability complaints with the state. And in all 4 cases, the state found that city schools violated the federal education rights of each student.
They just don't care. For a $1.6 billion company to wrong so many families of their children's education, they owe us reparation for that. And more of us need to speak out to not only obtain it, but to also to give our kids a chance at an education.
The families of these 4 students have hired an advocate to help them with their children's education. But what about the city leaders who allowed the school system to commit these violations? What help are they providing the families? That part of the story Wednesday. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
New tonight, Baltimore City Council members taking a feud over public safety public on Twitter. Yitzi Schleifer and Ryan Dorsey upset over how the two voted on different bills. Dorsey tweeting that Schleifer's district should not get new truck cameras that monitor overweight vehicles in his district because Schleifer voted against it, and his district will take the surplus. Councilman Schleifer retorted BPD should not place officers in Dorsey's district because Dorsey wants to defund police, and that he'd be more than happy to have the beefed up presence in his district.
Counting down to Election Day, a referendum on career politicians. Next on Fox 45 News, the choice over term limits city residents are preparing to make.
Plus, the dramatic demographic shift that could hurt Democrats' chances of holding onto Congress, the key support eroding that could change the balance of power in Washington.
And along with the rain, some windy and cool weather could have a record high minimum temperature for the day tomorrow. The last time we had highs only at 54 degrees was back in 2010 for October 4th. And I'm going for, guess what? Forecasted high of only 53. The rain's what's keeping us so cool, and this weather maker not helping out. Finally, by Thursday, we dry out. I'm going to let you know when the kids will finally be able to head outside for outdoor recess. Coming up in my Weather Authority forecast, 7-day also around the corner.
Baltimore voters will decide on term limits for city leaders. Question K would apply to the mayor, comptroller, city council president, and council members, limiting them to 2 4-year terms. Former mayoral candidate Bob Wallace joined us earlier this morning to discuss this push.
Some people will say, why is it necessary, though, to term limit leaders? If people don't like the job that they're doing, won't they vote them out of office? And by that same measure, if they're doing a good job, then now you've arbitrarily made a decision that you have to get rid of them because of limits.
That is true. I think every now and then we will have a Kurt Smoke or a Mayor Schaefer, men and women who get things done and know how to get things done. But I would argue that they are the exception and not the norm. What we need to do as people and leaders in the city is to systematize success, systematize innovation, systematize problem solving. And that requires that we systematize how we bring in new leaders and when we bring in new leaders.
You can read more on the candidates in November's election right now at foxbaltimore.com.
Well, the midterm election is just now 5 weeks away, and there's a dramatic demographic shift in polling.
Political observers say that recent changes could hurt the Democrats' chances to hold on to their congressional majority. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins reports.
With control of Congress at stake, Hispanic voters, a key part of the Democratic base, drifting toward Republicans, according to a new poll. Republican Congresswoman Mayra Flores says Democrats have taken Hispanic voters for granted.
The Democrat Party has abandoned the Hispanic community. They're focused on white liberals. They're not focused on the Hispanic community.
54% of Hispanic voters in a new NBC News Telemundo poll say they prefer Democrats to have control of Congress, compared to 33% who want Republicans in power. But that 21-point difference is half of what it was in 2012. Political strategists say Democrats are increasingly out of step with working-class voters of all races, including Hispanics, on key issues.
There's a lot of Latino voters in limbo, and everything we see points to the role of the economy.
The poll shows Republicans with slight advantages among Hispanic voters when it comes to the economy and the border.
Even among a set of Latinos who heavily favor a pathway to citizenship, want to see a humane and orderly system, they do have some concerns about the border, especially the border as it might be depicted in the media, not as a immigration issue, but as a law and order public safety concern.
But on abortion, Hispanic voters still support Democrats 50 to 23%, and 54% disapprove of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, giving Democrats hope that issue will energize voters next month.
For Democrats, the abortion issue has decidedly moved Latinas, Hispanic women, back into the Democratic column, essentially blunting this rightward shift that was happening.
But among Hispanics, abortion is much less important than inflation, the economy, and the border. And with a majority disapproving of President Biden's handling of those issues, a group that Democrats can usually count on may wind up helping boost Republicans on Election Day. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bull.
Those comments prompted a request for a gag order in the federal case against Marilyn Mosby. Ahead, the new filing related to that moment and the trouble the entire defense team is trying to avoid.
I'm just upset that the right hand doesn't speak to the left hand.
A homeless encampment under the JFX pops up on a farmer's market lot. Both sides confused and seeking help. See what happens when we take their concerns the short walk to City Hall. Our coverage of the crime in Baltimore County continues at 10:30. Two teenagers now recovering after they were shot in Catonsville over the weekend.
Alexa Ashwell is investigating the apparent increase in young victims of violent crime.
The Baltimore County Police Department saying they're still investigating what led up to this double shooting, but believe it was an isolated incident. Right now, both teens remain hospitalized at last check in critical condition.
This scene replaying for many. Emergency lights reflect off of the rain-soaked road, revealing remnants of a shooting here in Catonsville. The victims, 16 and 17 years old. The Baltimore County Police Department not yet revealing what they believe led up to the shooting. Officers receiving the call to this section of Maiden Choice Lane, with a neighborhood on one side and a shopping center on the other, around 9 Saturday night. There, investigators say officers found the 16-year-old who had been shot once and the 17-year-old who had been shot multiple times. Both rushed to an area hospital in critical condition. It's the latest violence in Baltimore County involving juveniles. So far this year, at least 6 juveniles have been shot across the county. Back in April, a 16-year-old shot in Wilkins. In August, an 8-year-old girl shot and killed, and a juvenile charged in her death in Towson. And last month, 2 teens were shot, one of them a 14-year-old killed after a Friday night high school football game near Milford Mill Academy in Pikesville.
I'm afraid to send my 14-year-old back to school this week coming up.
This fear of violence impacting juveniles felt countywide. Fox 45 News reaching out to the Baltimore County Police Department, asking, is the department concerned by the number of juveniles falling victim to gun violence and/or homicide in the county so far this year? What does the department believe is behind this issue, and what is the department doing to address it? As for this Catonsville community, the images ingrained in their memory as questions about what happened and why remain.
As for this latest case, the department has not yet released a suspect description. In Towson, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
A group of Baltimore County community members and parents are calling on Baltimore County school leaders to do more to keep students safe. It comes after a new video circulated online showing a group of students fighting, one of the girls using a bat. It's similar to a number of fights the county school system saw last year. Those who attended a rally in the rain are now calling for action from school leaders.
It just need to take it more serious, you know. It need to take it more serious and to, I mean, obviously I don't have the answers, but I think it starts with resources.
We just have a major issue where students are now having to try to take things in their own hands. We need the adults, we need the leadership in Baltimore County schools to start handling this issue so students don't feel like they have to do it themselves.
Today's rally comes after a town hall on the problems within Baltimore County schools last week. You can find out more on both stories on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Lawyers for Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby have refiled their motion opposing a gag order in the federal case against Ms. Mosby. The judge ordered the defense to refile the motion because they included specific private quotes from potential jurors last week. Now, the judge ordered that information must be taken out of the record and is giving them a deadline of Friday to show why she shouldn't penalize the Mosby team for disclosing the confidential information. According to the first filing, 30% of jurors said they had already made up their minds about the case.
In a city in crisis, a vendor at the Baltimore Farmers Market says he won't return next weekend unless a solution is found.
Mitchell Salland knows how he feels about this city.
I love Baltimore. I love everything about Baltimore.
But those feelings soured Sunday morning when he arrived to the Baltimore Farmers Market, where he says he's sold mini donuts for 20 years.
I meet so many different folks around, and it's just a wonderful thing. Believe me, I love this market. I love Baltimore. But this is sad, what's going on.
Salland says vendors arrived to find a homeless encampment had formed underneath I-83. Their tents occupying spots where market vendors were supposed to set up.
They would not let me in their space. They said, this is our space.
Salland says most of the camp minded their own business, but not all of them.
This one gentleman came, he ripped out all the cords, doing business, non-provoked, nothing going on. We're just going around doing our business. Another guy came into this space and threatened me.
This longtime vendor acknowledging the dilemma.
I mean, they need homes.
While also feeling blindsided.
I'm just upset that the right hand doesn't speak to the left hand, and I mean, this shouldn't have happened.
But the site of the weekly farmers market and recently formed homeless camp is a stone's throw from city leadership, sitting just 1 block northeast of City Hall.
This is not even nearing a solution. This is shameful.
Now this vendor wants to hear how the situation will be resolved.
Why can't we just have proper city management?
The market itself is run by BOPA, Baltimore Office of Promotion and the Arts. And yesterday, the nonprofit directed questions about the homeless encampment to City Hall. The mayor's office telling us it was aware of the group present at the farmers market, and the city's homeless services are conducting outreach to see how to best move forward together. But back in February,
we can no longer allow our most vulnerable residents to remain unhoused.
Mayor Brandon Scott announced more than $90 million for the city's short and long-term response to homelessness. $75 million of that coming from Baltimore's COVID relief money.
This is the largest investment into homeless support services that Baltimore has ever seen.
Now 8 months later, what the mayor called a public health crisis, once again highly visible and still demanding city attention.
They were able to, I guess, get everybody here, but if this is next week, this can't be. A full market, this won't be. There's about 25 vendors. I will not come back if this is like this. There's no way. This is not acceptable.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News sent questions to the mayor's office asking what action is being taken to assist the homeless while also ensuring the farmers market will not be impacted next weekend. Why were these individuals not helped sooner given the camp's visibility and proximity to City Hall? And has the city started using that $90 million to combat homelessness? Well, the mayor's office responded in a lengthy statement saying that they did reach out to the individuals experiencing homelessness who were in the tents on Friday. The office says it plans to submit approval for a third project to help get people off the streets. You can find that full statement in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com.
Baltimore City Council voted to approve a plan to establish new boundaries for the city's police districts. Council members voted to approve the new maps, which the police department created with input from the mayor and the city council. The legislation now goes to Mayor Scott for his signature. He does say he intends to sign that bill, releasing a statement saying, in part, ultimately, these districts optimize police response times and will facilitate better engagement between law enforcement and our communities. I look forward to signing the bill into law in the near future.
The defamation case against MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell will move forward. The Supreme Court rejecting his appeal to quash the case. Lindell is an outspoken supporter of former President Donald Trump. Dominion Voting Systems is suing Lindell and 2 other Trump allies for more than $1 billion for falsely accusing the company of rigging the election in President Joe Biden's favor. Meantime, the nation's highest court spent its first day back in session today with plans to hear cases with what legal experts call monumental implications for our country. As national correspondent Christine Frizzell reports, the new term might signify a new era for the court.
With the law protecting a woman's right to receive an abortion now overturned, some court watchers wonder, what's next? Following a term that also loosened gun laws and limited the power of the Environmental Protection Agency to fight climate change, this one begins with a new record. Just 40% of Americans approve of the job the Supreme Court is doing, with 58% saying they disapprove, a record high.
Just doesn't look like law when, some new judges appointed by a new president come in and start just tossing out the old stuff.
They were rulings that in some cases prompted protesters to show up to the homes of Justices Kavanaugh, Alito, and Chief Justice John Roberts, who recently cautioned against questioning the High Court's legitimacy.
The Constitution needs, as John Marshall put it, somebody to say what the law is, and that's the role of the Supreme Court. And that role doesn't change simply because people disagree with this opinion or that opinion or disagree with a particular mode of jurisprudence.
There is also another record for how many women are serving. 4 for the first time ever, including the first ever African-American woman justice.
I have a seat at the table now.
It is a table chock full of contentious cases, with the prospect of ending affirmative action in college admissions, potentially giving more power to state legislatures in federal elections, and one involving a company refusing to provide wedding website services to same-sex couples on religious grounds, a violation of state law. Just a few months ago, this entire building was surrounded by massive barriers erected in the wake of protests following the leak of that Dobbs abortion decision. Well, those barriers have now been taken down. And for the first time in 2.5 years, when the COVID-19 pandemic began, the public has been allowed back inside the courtroom. At the Supreme Court, I'm Christine Frizzell.
You don't expect anything like this to happen, and once you see it in person, it's really something else, you know?
Rescue crews working tirelessly to find survivors of Hurricane Ian in Florida. We're getting a first-hand look at what they're facing.
And another soaker of a morning commute on the way. Wet and chilly temperatures dropping off into the 40s, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm going to let you know what other commutes are going to be the wettest coming up in my Weather Authority forecast, and when we're finally going to break this pattern and get into sunshine, and if it's in time for the Ravens game, my full Weather Authority forecast. And will it ever end? We've got more rain here in Baltimore to Calverton, Parkville. All the neighborhoods across the city getting wet, all the way up to Towson, Baltimore County. Lightens up a little bit as you head into Carroll County, but, you know, this stuff is moving from east to west. So if you're not seeing it, you're probably gonna. Down toward Annapolis, more rain. Centerville, Chestertown, still dealing with some of the showers. And then, of course, as you work far enough east on the eastern shore towards the Delmarva, still some of those coastal flood warnings for Delaware, and then some coastal flood advisories down Ocean City way. So still going to see at least some minor coastal flooding next couple of high tide cycles into tomorrow morning and potentially into tomorrow afternoon as well, as the system still just plagues us. You can see this kind of spin and turn to all of the rainfall. It's the remnants of Ian combining with and kind of changing over to almost a nor'easter or kind of coastal system. And this thing is just slow to get out of here. Winds now out of the north at about 10 to 15 miles. Now we're adding some of the gusts are up to about 20 down Easton Way, as well as down toward Denton. There's our storm system. Again, it's not really Ian so much anymore, so it's kind of this kind of coastal low, and it's sort of stalled, so it's not really moving a whole lot. Starting to kind of get some legs and move south and east, and eventually it will do so. You could kind of get a good picture here for our Monday night into Tuesday. This is not moving very much, but finally, I think Wednesday it picks up and starts moving out, and by Thursday, sunshine does return. For now, 49 degrees, only 55 for a high today. The winds out of the north at 5, yes, making for a wind chill with that rain on the Toyota East Inner Harbor sky cam. Tropical satellite show us more chance of development, a low chance of development going across the Windward Islands next several days. There's a high chance of development. This could be our next depression. That's around the Cape Verde Islands, but should end up out in the open Atlantic, but something that we'll watch. Now, overnight into early tomorrow morning, there's the rain, continues on and off through the morning commute, through midday, on and off. And guess what? Into tomorrow afternoon. So both commutes going to be a mess here. But look at what happens by early Wednesday morning, finally beginning to clear out. And I think sunshine could return by Thursday. In terms of rain totals, maybe another up to an inch, maybe 2 inches of rain. Are we going to have outdoor recess tomorrow? I'd say a resounding no. Too wet, too chilly. But finally, maybe not Wednesday. Still going to be kind of wet, especially in the morning. But Thursday, 75, 73 on Friday. Could see a stray shower late. Gorgeous for the weekend in the Ravens game. Highs in the 60s.
Hurricane Ian has killed more than 100 people since it made landfall last week as a Category 4 storm. More than 2,700 people have been rescued so far, and search crews are still actively looking for survivors right now. More than 500,000 are without power, but the hope is to restore that by the end of the week. Florida now faces the daunting task of rebuilding as those who evacuated return to unrecognizable towns and cities.
There's nothing left. I don't know. I am optimistic. It's heartbreaking for all those families, for all those businesses. That's why I'm very sad.
It's been hard to get things here with I-75 shut down. That's been an issue. And the 62% of our population that's over 65 is a problem. And that problem means they need a lot more care and assistance.
A Boca Raton EMS group is one of hundreds of organizations sending volunteers to Florida's west coast to help with victims and families impacted by the storm. Lena Salzbank with our Sinclair sister station spent the day with those volunteers on the ground in Fort Myers.
Days after Ian tore across Florida with powerful winds and devastating storm surges, volunteers packed their cars and headed straight to the disaster site.
We have a full truck full of medical equipment, rescue gear, and some things that may be helpful to local community members.
The devastation of the hurricane first coming into focus for first responders after crossing over the bridge on San Carlos Boulevard.
I mean, wow, that's my reaction. You don't expect anything like this to happen, and once you see it in person, it's really something else,
CBS 12 News rode along with the Jewish Volunteer Ambulance Corps, an EMS group based out of Boca Raton, now on the ground in Lee County.
Is anybody in here?
Search and rescue, the #1 task as thousands remain unaccounted for after neighborhoods were reduced to rubble.
And while a lot of people have left Fort Myers, we're seeing a ton of people walking miles up and down this street just trying to find food and water and a way out of this area.
You got the tea slim going. You need some sugar?
I just need a cracker. It's only
the once vibrant beach town, now a ghost town with few residents choosing to stay.
Got up to 3 feet, grabbed everything that we could, and went next door to a house at 16 feet up.
So they tell me I gotta leave. I stay here.
Do you think they will tell you eventually?
I hope not.
Eventually, we're going to have to leave. They're going to have to tear this down, and we'll have to restart. But right now, I ain't going nowhere. That's all I got. All I got.
On Friday, officers stopped anyone trying to head towards Fort Myers Beach. Anyone trying to get over that bridge has to be a resident with a pass or identification. Meanwhile, EMS continues to help families evacuate the area, and JVAC says they'll be back in the coming days. In Fort Myers, Lena Salzbank.
And while attention has shifted to the devastation of Hurricane Ian, tens of thousands of people remain in the dark in Puerto Rico. President Biden surveyed the damage today and vowed to continue the support. The president announced more than $60 million in new funding to help coastal areas with flood warning systems.
We're investing in Puerto Rico's roads, bridges, public transit, ports, airports, water safety, and high-speed internet. We know that the climate crisis and more extreme weather are going to continue to hit this island and hit the United States overall. And as we rebuild, we have to ensure that we build it to last.
President Biden says they'll put particular focus on making the power grid more resilient for future storms. Hurricane Maria devastated the island 5 years ago, killing nearly 3,000 people. The president will tour the damage in Florida on Wednesday. What you flush down the toilet could be used to protect us from new COVID variants. How looking closely at wastewater may help doctors stay ahead of the virus. Another heartbreaker at home. The Ravens are on the rebound with a share of first place. John Harbaugh shares how the team will move forward with important primetime tests looming.
Already eliminated, but it's a winning season for the Orioles. They can get to 85 if they sweep the Blue Jays in the final series of the season. Blue Jays on the board first, up 2-0 in the third on Dean Kramer. Then Vlad Guerrero Jr. knocks out his 32nd home run, moving back the wall. Not going to help there. 3-0 Toronto. Anthony Santander's sac fly to get the O's on the board with the bases loaded. They trailed 5-1 in the eighth, but the game was called then after a rain delay. The Ravens' 2 losses this season, both at home, both blown second-half leads, 21 points to Miami, 17 to Buffalo. Leads lost when the offense couldn't close out the game late and the defense get off the field. But the Ravens are only 1 month into the season. Yesterday in Week 4, I think it's just as easy for the Ravens to say they beat themselves, not that the Bills did anything remarkable to come back down 20-3 in the second quarter. The Ravens offense was shut out in the second half, went for a gutsy 4th and goal call with 4 minutes left, didn't work, left field goal points on the field, and the defense couldn't close. We can also mix in weather and questionable flags, but the silver lining reality check, they're 2-2 and still at the top of the AFC North.
We're at 4 games in, basically the first quarter is over, and we're 2-2, tied for the division lead, and that's where we stand. So you take a step back, you look at that, and you understand where you're at, and we start getting ready for the most important game of the season so far, which will be, Sunday Night Football against the Bengals, our first division opponent.
For 11 NFL seasons, former Ravens cornerback Jimmy Smith comes back to Owings Mills to retire a Raven. That's at 11:30 when Sports Unlimited continues.
Thank you, Morgan. Well, the push to get flu vaccines in arms, the signs from the southern hemisphere that has doctors forecasting a bad flu season. And on the late edition, the search is on after the chaos at Arundel Mills Mall on Saturday. The accident that set off panic. Police say this is the man it was connected to. Well, if you haven't gotten your flu shot yet, now is a good time to get it done. Health experts say it could be poised for a big comeback after historically low levels during the pandemic.
For the fact that flu hasn't been here for a couple of years really has changed for the population immunity to flu. Not only that overall we just haven't been exposed to as much, so the population immunity has dropped. But, we've got kids who are now 2 years older getting their first exposure to flu than typical.
Well, Australia just ended a particularly bad flu season. U.S. flu vaccines protect against 4 different strains right now. The CDC says everyone 6 months and older should get the flu shot.
Violence in Baltimore County continues to threaten young people's lives. The rising crime trend, the police union says county leaders don't want you to know about. Well, a new law in Baltimore City actually stopped the use of dangerous illegal dirt bikes. Fox 45 News is pressing leaders on how the policy will be enforced. Over 100 people dead, thousands more left without homes to return to. The latest on Hurricane Ian recovery efforts.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Good evening. I'm Riel. Creighton Kai Jackson has the night off. Our top story tonight, the gun violence in Baltimore County continues after a violent weekend. At least 3 people were hurt in shootings this weekend, 2 of them teenagers. Tonight, a deadly shooting, this time in Nottingham. It happened on Heathrow Court near Slater Avenue and Bel Air Road. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor is taking a closer look at the growing violence in Baltimore County.
Well, we know there's been another shooting, but details from police have been hard to come by. It's a pattern we're starting to see with Baltimore County's police department, and it's something their police union is especially frustrated with. It was a weekend marked by bloodshed in Baltimore County. On Saturday, 2 teens in critical condition after a shooting in Catonsville. On Sunday, a man gunned down in Owings Mills. And now another shooting striking the county on Monday. Residents at this apartment complex near Perry Hall High School telling us off camera they overheard several shots being sprayed, then later saw a body laying next to this dumpster. Fox 45 reaching out to police for basic information, asking, was this a homicide and is there still a threat to the public? But police only willing to say officers responded to a shots fired call, claiming they can't release any more information due to it being an active investigation.
And that's disturbing.
According to FOP President David Folderauer, the lack of information is on par with the department's recent lack of transparency.
And the police department is not being as forthcoming with information that very much could quell the fear that's going on when you hear about severe incidents.
To make matters worse, Folderauer says crime stats on the county's website not adding up. The FOP ran the numbers themselves, and there's significantly more crime than what's currently being reported. It's a discrepancy Folderauer brought to the department's attention back in August, and yet
still not cleared up. They're still using the exact same system. So somewhere there is an issue.
An issue, he says, shields the public from the true story of climbing crime in the county.
Where there is an issue, whether it's ineptitude or intentional, but I don't know which one of the two it is.
Now, after an exchange of emails back and forth, the department finally getting back to us tonight just before news time to confirm that there is no longer a threat to the community after tonight's incident. However, they also say a man was found dead. They're not confirming whether he was shot or if it was a homicide. In the meantime, my questions concerning the crime stat discrepancy, those are still going unanswered. Reporting in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Are more kids committing crimes because they don't fear the consequences? So far, 98% of those who have voted say yes. We want to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com to weigh in. Turning now to a city in crisis and a potential solution to a problem that Baltimore City has been dealing with for years. We've seen dangerous street racing and stunt driving shut down streets time and time again. Well, now there's a new law to crack down on those drivers. The question is, can it be enforced? Keith Daniels has the latest on those concerns.
Well, it's a law targeting stunt racing and stunt driving, and it also applies to dirt bikes. But tonight, questions over enforcement. Revving engines, squealing tires, roaring dirt bikes. The long-standing issue of obstruction of streets, illegal racing, and stunt driving. Tonight, a new law, stiffer penalties for offenders. With the stroke of a pen, Mayor Brandon Scott signing the legislation into law.
I'm glad we finally have some tough laws to deal with it.
City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer, who represents Northwest Baltimore, introduced the bill this summer. Now it's law. But what about enforcement?
Are you looking for arrest? You want to see arrest?
No, I mean, the idea here is that it serves as more of a deterrent. We don't want to have to take enforcement action, but now, if it does continue, there will be enforcement action taken.
The new law carries a fine up to $1,000 for violators and up to a year in jail if convicted of the misdemeanor charge. But with an understaffed police department and City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby already choosing not to prosecute certain lower-level crimes, will this law be enforced? Not everyone is so sure.
If the police aren't going to enforce it now, what makes them think they're going to enforce this when there's just another law with a $1,000 fine?
While there's doubt Mosby will prosecute, Ivan Bates has said he intends to prosecute laws that are on the books, including those related to squeegee kids, who Bates has said must go.
We have to find a way to remove them.
We asked, in terms of enforcement, is this a law that Ivan Bates would uphold and prosecute? We sent the email at about 4:20 today. As of 9 o'clock tonight, we had not heard back. But back at City Hall,
when we sign a bill like this, we need to make sure that people are held accountable.
More from what council members and community leaders expect on enforcement.
I think that if folks are consistently breaking the law, then yes, they need to be arrested.
We got to put a stop to this, you know what I'm saying? This is dangerous, it can hurt somebody, it can cause damage. I mean, so many of things, but more than anything is lawlessness.
Well, still tonight, no word from Ivan Bates. Meantime, the new law goes into effect in 30 days. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Baltimore City has a few laws that aren't enforced, and that includes laws that could keep squeegee kids off the streets. One of those states that a person can't stand in a roadway to solicit a ride, employment, or business from a driver. The other targets aggressive soliciting. Another is the city curfew. The law states that children 13 years and younger in Baltimore City must be inside from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m., while children 14 to 16 have an 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says that curfew is impossible to enforce. However, nearby Prince George's County is enforcing theirs. We're continuing to track the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. Here in Maryland, the remnants of that storm still bringing wind and rain to the area. Meteorologist Jonathan Myers will have the details on when things will clear up here in just a moment. But first, Florida is still reeling from that storm. So many homes, businesses, and entire neighborhoods destroyed in the flooding. President Biden is headed to Florida this week to survey that damage and speak on the recovery efforts. Across the state, the death toll has now surpassed 100. This is a look at Arcadia, Florida, where much of that community is still underwater. In areas like these, rescue crews are still searching for survivors. First responders are closing in on 3,000 rescues. What's left of the storm has been dumping rain on us here in Maryland now for days. This is a live look at the pier in Ocean City, where they have been getting hit with strong winds and big waves because of that storm. Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here with what to expect from these lingering effects. Jonathan.
Yeah, still some coastal flood warnings out Delaware way for the overnight tides and the tides into tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. But around here, it's not tidal problems. It's just a lot of, more rain that's going to be affecting you and impacting your morning commute. Take a look. This stuff kind of spiraling back in from east to west again, just like what we see, these waves of rain. And there's a storm system now. It's kind of a coastal system that's developing off of some of the leftover kind of ghost energy, if you will, of Ian. So not really Ian anymore. Now it's just kind of this separate weather maker that's developing, bringing not only heavy rain, but cool temperatures. Take a look at this. Had a high of 55 today. Tomorrow, the record chill for the day is 54 from back in 2010. I'm going for the coldest October 4th on record with a high of 53 degrees. Look at this bus stop forecast, just a soaker all day long. I'm going to let you know when things are going to dry out day by day, hour by hour. That's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
And a crisis in the classroom. Parents demanding more from the Baltimore County School District to keep their kids safe. A group of frustrated parents holding a Safe Schools 911 rally. The event tonight, a direct response to this viral video that shows a young girl swinging a bat at classmates. Some of the girl's family members say that she brought that bat to protect herself, allegedly from a bully. They claim Perry Hall High did not do enough to help her, despite knowing about the problems. Community leaders say that there has to be a change for students to be safe.
Parents want to know, what are they going to do? Because we see kids that continue to start fights coming back the next day, and that's not okay.
Parents at the meeting tonight also voicing their concerns over what they say is a lack of resources when it comes to what is available for children who are in crisis or being bullied.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
Lawyers for Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby have refiled their motion opposing a gag order in the federal case against Ms. Mosby. The judge ordered the defense to refile the motion because in the original one last week, they included specific quotes from potential jurors, and that is against the rules. The judge ordered that information must be taken out of the record and is giving them a deadline of Friday to show why she shouldn't penalize the Mosby team for disclosing the confidential information. Now, according to the first filing, 30% of jurors said they had already made up their minds about the case.
A gun goes off in a mall, multiple people injured in the ensuing panic. The latest on the investigation into the shots fired at Arundel Mills. It could find virus outbreaks and new strains quick, but is it an invasion of privacy? The debate over regular wastewater testing. Here's our look at today's top trending stories. Number one, police need your help in finding a man possibly involved in that accidental shooting at Arundel Mills. And Arundel County Police sharing this image of that man who they describe as a person of interest in what they call an accidental discharge in the food court Saturday afternoon. Nobody was shot, but in the panic that followed, 2 people were hurt running for cover. We shared this picture on FoxBaltimore.com. Number 2, protest outside Baltimore City Hall today. The group is calling on the city to move forward with the Easterwood Skate Park. The city had approved the money to build the skate park in Easterwood Park across from Carver Vocational High School. In July, city and state leaders decided that project would not be moving forward in favor of overall park improvements. Supporters of the skate park say it would provide a safe place for children to skate and accessible recreation opportunities for everyone in that community. Number 3, the Baltimore City police officer who was shot last Friday is now out of the hospital. BPD just tweeting out new pictures showing him leaving Johns Hopkins Hospital and being saluted by his sisters and brothers in blue. A big show of support as members of the city police force gathered to cheer them on. The officer was shot responding to a domestic call. That suspect is now in custody. President Biden is headed to Florida to survey the damage, the latest on the recovery efforts after Hurricane Ian.
And if you thought it felt a little cold today, well, you'd be right. 86 degrees, same day last year, October 3rd, 2021. Today, a high of 55, should be at 74. And if you wouldn't believe it, also last year, to get highs in the 50s, it took all the way until November 2nd, a month from now. We did it today, and it's even cooler tomorrow. I'm going to let you know how long the nasty rainy weather lasts in my Weather Authority forecast.
While attention is shifted to the devastation of Hurricane Ian, tens of thousands of people remain in the dark in Puerto Rico. Well, President Biden surveyed that damage today and vowed to continue support. It has been 2 weeks since Hurricane Fiona tore through, knocking out power to the U.S. territory. 90% of the island is back online. Biden announcing more than $60 million in new funding to help coastal areas with warning flood systems.
We're investing in Puerto Rico's roads, bridges, public transit, ports, airports, water safety, and high-speed internet. We know that the climate crisis and more extreme weather are going to continue to hit this island and hit the United States overall. And as we rebuild, we have to ensure that we build it to last.
The next stop for the president is Florida, where later this week he's set to visit communities impacted by Hurricane Ian. And Florida is still reeling from Hurricane Ian, one of the worst natural disasters in the state's history. More than 100 people are dead. More than 2,700 have been rescued so far. Search crews are still actively looking for survivors. 500,000 remain without power, but the hope is to restore that by the end of the week.
And guess what? Here we go again. More rain. Gilmore Homes all the way up to Guilford, down to downtown Baltimore, Cherry Hill, Brooklyn Park. As you head into northern Anne Arundel County, the yellows continue to take over. That's some heavy rain that's probably going to stay with you through the morning commute, all the way up 83 as well. Butler into Hampstead and northeastern Carroll County, and then even into Harford County, still getting some of that good rain coming down. So it's going to be wet, waterlogged, soaked, whatever you want to call it, a hazardous morning commute. It's going to be coming. Also on the extreme eastern shore, actually really more so as you get out towards the Delaware beaches, still potentially the overnight high tides and tomorrow afternoon's high tides could be providing for some at least minor coastal flooding. So coastal flood warnings continue there. They have thankfully been dropped for the Ocean City area. So gradual improvements expected as this coastal low now. It's kind of the remnant energy combining with a nor'easter, or turning into a nor'easter, that remnant energy of Ian, making the conversion now to a fully non-tropical system. And we're seeing the winds pick up with that out of the north, 10 to 15, gusts up to about 20 now on the eastern shore. And there's that spinning L. That's our latest weather maker. This system, unfortunately, is not moving very fast, so we're going to continue to see the same pattern stay and set up. Take a look. Tonight versus tomorrow, the low position or the storm position, it barely moves, but it is going to start now moving eastbound. So that's some good news. Finally, I think it gets out of here by the middle and end of the week. Probably Thursday, you're going to notice the big differences. 49 right now. Ugh, winds out of the north at 8. Wind chill at 45. It is raining cats and dogs. Here you see on the Mile 1 town scan. Look at these wind chills. 40 degrees is what it feels like at Easton. 41 at Denton. A heavy raincoat. Temperatures in the low and mid 40s on the real feel. Chestertown to Baltimore. Out in the tropics, only low chance of development here. Crossing the Windward Island over the Windward Island chain over the next few days. A high chance of development, though, over the open Atlantic. That could become our next tropical depression. Good news, I think it stays over the water in the eastern Atlantic. Now, overall, looks like on and off rain overnight through the morning commute through 9, 10 o'clock. Then midday, another band of rain. Tomorrow afternoon, more rain. And guess what? Into Tuesday night, more rain. Finally, by Wednesday, the showers begin to diminish, but that's after we put down an extra maybe 1 to 2 inches of rain across the area. Finally dries out a little bit by Wednesday afternoon. You're feeling the difference here on Thursday. Sprinkle chance on Friday. That's another cold front, leaving us cool but dry, just in time for the Ravens game this weekend.
Many say testing our wastewater is the wave of the future when it comes to fighting perhaps another epidemic or pandemic. I'm Liz Bonus. It does raise some interesting consent questions, however. We talk about that just ahead.
On the path forward now, a debate on privacy is escalating as public health providers expand wastewater testing to track COVID-19 and other illnesses. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains why.
Hey there, everybody. Public health providers say the future of contact tracing is in wastewater monitoring if we're going to get ahead of everything from new COVID-19 variants to polio. But it does raise a few questions about your privacy and consent. You see, what's in our water may tell us what's circulating, as lab testing, which reports viral case counts for illnesses such as COVID-19, continues to decline.
That's the foundation of epidemiology.
Broad community surveillance has been helpful in tracking potential deadly strains already of COVID-19. But public health providers admit that what's in your wastewater has the potential to be tracked to specific neighborhoods or homes.
We don't do that typically, but it could be done. And there have been cases where even maybe a building appeared to have a new variant, and you could kind of focus on that.
Dr. Steve Fagan says he sees this as an extension of contact tracing. But could it then be that you are mandated to get a vaccine in the name of public health if they trace a viral illness or contagious disease through wastewater to your home? So does this raise some ethical issues then about consent?
It's interesting about individual consent. In many cases, you could very well be called if you're a contact of someone with a contagious disease. It's a reportable contagious disease for which public health does that. You didn't consent to that call, but you'd like to know about it.
The hope is that this will add to more flexibility and freedom, not less. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
A former Raven comes back home to retire in the purple and black. Next on Sports Unlimited. That's all for the Fox 45 News at 11, the late edition. I'm Rielle Creighton. Now here's Morgan Atzett with Sports Unlimited. Morgan.
Thank you, Rielle. Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman named Most Valuable Oriole. It's an award voted on by local media covering the team. Full disclosure, I went Anthony Santander because he played a full season and leads the Birds in more offensive categories. But Rutschman, with an impressive MLB debut, 35 doubles, an O's rookie record, 13 home runs and 42 RBIs in 111 games. The 24-year-old also with 92 games behind the plate. He's the third rookie to be named MVP by local media. Already eliminated, but it's a winning season for the Orioles. They can get to 85 if they sweep the Blue Jays in the final series of the season. Blue Jays on the board first, up 2-0 the third on Dean Kramer. Then Vlad Guerrero Jr. His 32nd home run didn't matter where that wall was. 3-0 Toronto. Anthony Santander's sac fly to get the O's on the board. With the bases loaded, they trailed 5-1 in the 8th, and the game was called then after a brief rain delay. 1 month into the season, and the Ravens are 0-2 at home, coming off another loss to the bank when once up 3 scores. A 21-point blown lead to Miami, 17 to the Bills in Week 4 yesterday. Similar outcomes with a mix of similar issues. The Ravens' offense couldn't close, and the defense couldn't get off the field. Once up 20-3 in the second, the Ravens didn't score after that. Left a field goal on the field right there with that 4th and goal call. The team has no regrets about it. Receiver Devin Duvernay was open. Lamar Jackson under pressure missed him and then threw a pick. Defensively, the Bills scored 20 unanswers. The D couldn't get off the field, out a bag of roughing the passer penalty, and then failed plan to let the Bills score to get the ball back. A tale of 2 halves, but the Ravens' reality, they're 2-2 at the top of the North and have a long season ahead.
We need to get better in all those situations. We need to finish. We need to extend. The best defense is a great offense. It's an offensive league. So in the 3rd and 4th quarter, the best way to win a game is to keep the defense off the field and extend the lead. And we've done that before. The best offense is a good defense. Get the ball back, keep the score down, get the ball back. Special teams, put the ball in good field position. That's complementary football, So we need to get better in every area that pertains to that.
Some injury updates. John Harbaugh said receiver Rashad Bateman has a foot injury. He's day-to-day, and they dodged a bullet with running back Justice Hill's hamstring. Doesn't appear to be serious, but he may miss time. They've got 3 players eligible to return Week 5 off the PUP list in practice this week, and it looks like running back Gus Edwards is ready to practice after missing last season with a knee injury, according to John Harbaugh. The Ravens called an extra afternoon presser, fired up fans after the Bills lost. Wanted some dramatics, but it's not going to happen. Former corner Jimmy Smith announced his retirement. He said last season he wouldn't play for another team as he headed to free agency. Smith retires a Raven after 11 seasons, 14 interceptions, a Super Bowl ring. He was their first-round pick in 2011 and could have left even for Cleveland to get paid, but wanted to stay a Raven for life.
Big thing for me to have been here. I watch players go, and I probably have the draft class that might go down in Hall of Fame history. Like, we had so many great players, and every single one of them played for another team now, and I'm kind of happy that I'm the one that stuck it out. It just shows, I don't know, it shows a lot to me. So I never really thought like, oh, I'm about to go out here and no disrespect to the Browns again. They get mad at me about this, but I wasn't about to go play for some random Browns, I wasn't about to go do something like that.
He's the reason why they won a Super Bowl. That's all for Sports Unlimited tonight. I'm Morgan Adsit. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.